History is not silent. It breathes. It waits. Remembers. And across Western Igboland, the earth still whispers the final roar of a people who refuse to kneel. A movement that spanned generations, burned through forests, vanished into war bush camps, and re-emerged every time the British believed it had died. This is the last storm of the Ekumeku. The final uprising of 1909 to 1910, the battle that would decide the fate of Ogwashi-Ukwu, the balance of colonial power, and the closing chapter of an era defined by defiance. Walk with me into the fire of the last Ekumeku. The people of Western Igboland and the colonialists were believed to have put aside their differences and were starting to tolerate each other, until a spark, unexpected and fierce, erupted between two powerful families in Ogwashi-Ukwu, triggering a storm that would shake the region. The mantle of Obiship of Ogwashi-Ukwu rotated between the families of Nzekwe and Okonjor, but fate stirred the pot. Okonjor, who was next in line, died before Nzekwe did in 1907. Tension rose. Accusations multiplied. Two sons, both with legitimate claims, both unwilling to bow. To end the unrest, an election was conducted, with the British colonial administration watching closely, desperate to preserve the fragile peace. The people chose Nzekwe. The British approved. But peace was an illusion. Okonjor refused to accept defeat. He traveled to Asaba, seeking influence, leverage and justice on his own terms. There, a chief introduced him to Mr. Dove, a Sierra Leonean lawyer who promised restoration, at a price. £127 exchanged hands. £80 landed with Mr. Dove. And the petitions began, letters demanding the deposition of Nzekwe. An invisible fire, quietly spreading. Meanwhile, an Igbuzo man, secretly planted as a spy by the British, was killed. The colonial administration launched an investigation. And because it happened under Nzekwe's jurisdiction, he was summoned. But Nzekwe, fearful and suspicious, believing it was part of Okonjor's scheme, refused. To the British this was rebellion. To Nzekwe it was survival. Messengers came. And messengers returned battered. Okonjor continued sowing discord in Ogwashi-Ukwu, widening the rift, tightening the noose. The British could feel trouble building, and so R.A. Roberts was sent to restore order and bring Nzekwe to heel. October 30, 1909, Roberts issued a 48-hour ultimatum. Appear before the colonial administration, or Ogwashi-Ukwu would face invasion. Nzekwe did not come. Behind the scenes, Mr. Dove kept pushing, insisting that Nzekwe was dangerous, that he must be removed and Okonjor installed. November 3, 1909. Colonial troops marched to Ubulu-Ukwu. Messengers made a final attempt at peace. But Nzekwe met them standing with guns, not just him but his entire household armed. He insisted he was innocent. And he warned, "If the white man steps into Ogwashi-Ukwu, I will take up arms." The camel's back snapped. November 7, 1909. At dawn, colonial troops advanced from Ubulu-Ukwu toward Ogwashi-Ukwu. Their mission: destroy the town. Strip Nzekwe of his obiship. Crush the Ekumeku. But the Ekumeku were children of the forest. Masters of silence. Guardians of shadows. Nzekwe and his warriors melted into the war bush, abandoning only after destroying the native courthouse, the Church Missionary Society, and every structure seen as a symbol of British oppression. Nzekwe was no longer alone. Ekumeku warriors from neighboring towns pledged allegiance to him. In the shadows, betrayal brewed. Father Zappa, a missionary, acted as an informant, sending intelligence to the British in exchange for safety. When Nzekwe heard, he planned retaliation, but British forces reached Ogwashi-Ukwu too quickly. Captain Sheffield unleashed daily raids, targeting areas hostile to British rule. Messages spread across the region. Any town found aiding Nzekwe would be invaded. The Ekumeku's grip tightened. And so did Britain's resolve. Skirmishes ravaged the land. But on November 10, 1909, the British suffered 5 casualties, inflicted by the Azungwu clan. Their response was merciless. They attacked Azungwu and felled the sacred Ngwu tree. Its fall echoed across Igboland. Suddenly, more towns joined Nzekwe. Out of 33 Igbo settlements, 16 hostile, 11 friendly, 6 neutral. Britain grew desperate. They targeted Ogwashi-Ukwu, believing it to be Nzekwe's headquarters. November 19, 1909, the British arrived unopposed, at first. But the Ekumeku struck hard. Night raids, ambushes, silence followed by thunder. The British planned counterattacks, but achieved nothing. No prisoners. No Ekumeku casualties. Sheffield called for reinforcements from Agbor. Captain Purcell arrived on November 25. From Ogwashi-Ukwu, another attack was planned. Chief Elumelu of Ogwashi offered intelligence. Nzekwe was hiding in the Umudii quarters. November 29, 1909. A raid was launched, but Nzekwe had vanished once again. He was a ghost, a shadow, a whisper in the wind. Purcell and Sheffield searched relentlessly. Then, a breakthrough. 2 Ekumeku warriors were captured at a bush camp in Ekpoma. Through torture, information spilled. December 10, Purcell set out to capture Nzekwe. Days passed. No sign of him. Then unexpectedly, chiefs from many warring towns surrendered, declaring for the colonial government. Roberts was astonished. A meeting was held on December 16. Peace seemed possible. The British withdrew temporarily. But Ekumeku peace was not British peace. 2 days later, Nzekwe and his warriors attacked the Catholic mission buildings and Roman Catholic Church. The British returned immediately. And this time they faced a force unlike anything before. Stockades were raised. Trenches dug. Warriors united with one purpose: send the whites back to the sea. What Britain thought would be a simple arrest erupted into a full-scale war. The British Empire, already weakening economically and politically, was not prepared for another prolonged war. They sought an end. They blamed Okonjor, and rightly so. He was arrested and tried for conspiring with Mr. Dove to incite unrest. He was fined £10 and given 10 months in prison. But the damage was irreversible. Ekumeku warriors were weary, tired, bleeding. May 11, 1910. Some betrayed Nzekwe, revealing the location of his camp. The British attacked. Nzekwe escaped yet again. The war dragged on. Then the unthinkable happened. May 27, 1910. Nzekwe surrendered, along with 200 of his remaining warriors. They were taken to Asaba, awaiting trial. But something remarkable occurred. Colonial governors, British officers, even Captain Sheffield, wrote in Nzekwe's defense. They called him honorable, respected, a leader whose imprisonment would ignite future uprisings. They argued he fought not to hide the killing of the Igbo spy, but because he believed he was about to be unjustly dethroned. Eventually, Nzekwe was released, reinstated as Obi of Ogwashi-Ukwu. But peace required sacrifice. The people demanded the closure of Roman Catholic missions in their villages. The British agreed. Ogwashi-Ukwu was made the colonial headquarters, a strategic move to suppress future Ekumeku flames. And slowly, peace descended on Igboland, until 1914, when a new spark ignited in Quail. The Ekumeku were never just warriors. They were memory, identity, resistance woven into the soil of Western Igboland. Their final stand, the War of 1909 to 1910, was not a defeat. It was a warning. A reminder that even under the weight of empire, the human spirit refuses to break. But the story does not end here. Because in 1914, another fire rose. And in our next chapter, we will walk into Quail, where the Ekumeku spirit took its final breath, and yet refused to die.
Thank you for joining me on this journey of African history, philosophy, and mythology. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos on African history, philosophy, and mythology.